Hello everyone, welcome to BayernNow, the ultimate Bayern Munich fan channel. This is a video a lot of you have been asking for, so I'm finally bringing it to you. Potential replacements for Thiago ready to tackle God Cantara. Seriously, if Thiago ends up leaving, which I don't want him to, then we have to get another midfielder. There are people that are saying, well, we can just give Mikel Coussant a chance or just stick with Kimmich and Goretzka. Well, at the end of the day, here's the situation. If you get rid of a world-class player, you need another world-class player or a player similar to his level. Thiago's one of those players that can pretty much do everything, so it's very difficult to replace him because you'd have to replace his creativity, you'd have to replace his technical ability on the pitch, while also replacing his defensive impetus in the game. So there's a lot of things that you have to look at when you're replacing Thiago, and some of these players might not fit the bill, but they could have a few traits that Thiago has, so they could potentially work, especially in the midfield that Bayern like to press and all these things. But the first guy is Houssem, Aouar. A lot of you have been saying his name in my ear in my chat. Houssem, Aouar, what about him, George? What about him? What about him? I'm not Bayern's board. Go shout to Kyle Ninja. Go shout to all of them. To Hassan Salamans, okay? Go shout to them, because I'm not Bayern's board. Some of you think I'm Bayern. I'm Bayern's board, okay? No. Here's a board on my table. I am not Bayern's board, just saying, okay? I'm just as close to the Bayern board as you are, okay? I can't make signings, guys. Relax. Stop putting this pressure on me. The criticism I've been getting about my decisions to let Thiago go, these are not my decisions. Nah, seriously. He's a good player, and a lot of you want him, and I can see why. He has the technical elegance. A lot of these younger players, if you look at Kai Havertz, João Felix, you look at a few other players around Europe, even more that we're going to talk about, a lot of them have the technical elegance gene. Some of these players aren't really into the whole dribbling for 50 minutes thing. That's something that's slowly dying. This is what happens in football a lot of the times. Technical elegant players, and then very skilled and very, very football focused and talented players. And then you go back. It's a thing that keeps going. And Aouar is one of the players that I'd say that would be a very good midfielder for the next generation. Funniest thing is, Liverpool were actually somehow interested in him, but it kind of died off. I'm not exactly sure as to why. Maybe the pricing, but he'd be cheap actually. This guy could cost maybe 20 million because Lyon need money. I think Lyon's president said Lyon need to sell this summer. So there's going to be a few players that could potentially leave Lyon. And this guy could be a very good option, very cheap as well. I think he's only 21 or 22, not exactly sure. Very elegant midfielder, can take the ball from deep and move it around. Very great on the dribble, and he can nutmeg people. This guy could nutmeg a merman, man. He's absolutely cold when it comes to the dribbling side of the game. But there is a question. Thiago is one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. If you look at the stats, this guy pulls out more numbers than a freaking mathematician. He can do it. So I'm not exactly sure if Aouar can be this type of player, especially in a Bayern team where we're pressing high, we need defensive brilliance and intelligence. Thiago is known for his intelligence on the pitch. So is Aouar going to be that defensively imposing character in the midfield? I don't think so. Maybe an advanced number 8, that's what he looks like, because he can get on the dribble, try and create things. That's if you're playing a 4-3-3. This guy could probably work at Liverpool, ironically, because he could play in that almost advanced creator role that Coutinho played in. But since he has the engine, he could probably run a midfield by himself. But this isn't what we need at Bayern. We need someone that has just a little bit more. That because we're so reliant on our midfield when it comes to creating stuff and running the game, rather than Liverpool, who are reliant on their fullbacks to do the creating for them. So this guy could be an option, but he could maybe polish his defensive game when he comes here. Hansi Flick has shown he can improve player traits. Davies wasn't necessarily the best and most consistent crosser. I wouldn't say he was a terrible crosser, just not enough consistency in his crossing. Hansi came in, and all of a sudden Davies was getting 50 assists a game. Some of you are going to be like, what? You think you are underrating other teams' players? Davies is it's a freaking hyperbole, if you never heard of that. So the next player that could potentially come to Bayern, Camavinga. I think I forgot his name. Eduardo Camavinga. Good player, very good player at Rennes, I think. Superb tackler of the ball. I've never seen a player. Maybe Javi Martinez or Casemiro. When Javi was in his prime, that's the type of player you'd say Camavinga is. just with more technical elegance to him. Like I said, a lot of these younger players have a lot of technical elegance to them. If you look at how this guy plays, not that bad on the ball. Sometimes you're like, oh, he makes 4.4 tackles per game. All he wants to do is defend and protect the back four. But then you actually look, this guy actually is very good on the ball. Decent. Can move the ball. Only 17 years old, almost 18. He'd be a very cheap option as well because, look, a lot of these young players aren't going to go for 70 million now. They're going to go for maybe 30, 20 million. But it's still a buy. It's still a really big, very, very huge ask of a young player to come in, especially when he hasn't played for all these months, to replace Thiago. It's still always going to be a big ask. But here's a point that I wanted to bring up. Bayern did say they're looking for young players that could follow the path of Alphonso Davies. What if a Camavinga can follow the same path? And the other players we talk about here could apply to them as well. What if they follow a similar path to Alphonso, where they're coming in, they're very good in their leagues, but then they come into Bayern, integrate very quickly, and automatically just bang. I mean, you're not going to get as many Davieses, but you can try with Camavinga. That's a young player. So same thing with Aouar, same thing with a few other players we're going to talk about here. He's a very good option, could tackle the ball, protect the defense, but that's if you're playing a 4-3-3. I don't think this guy could be very reliable in a 4-2-3-1 or very well used. I think he's probably more suited to a 4-3-3 where he's a lone CDM. He can just sit there by himself, and Kimmich, Goretzka can be playing higher, but I don't want Kimmich playing too high because I would need his creative output in the CDM position when he's deep. That means that opposition players are pressing him, but he can get out of pressure, and I'd like him to keep it like that. But there's a lot of things that I'd like to happen. I don't think Camavinga would necessarily fit what we're doing now, but maybe if we went to a 4-3-3, if we didn't sign an attacking midfielder, then you could probably look at it. If we signed a Houssem, I'd be thinking we're going 4-3-3. But Bayern don't really play with a 4-3-3 anymore. It's usually these days a 4-2-3-1. And it's probably going to be remaining like that, especially if it's successful. So another important thing to look at there, the formation and how these players will fit in to the team. Okay, next player, Boubakary Soumare. I think he's a fantastic player. I've never seen a player this cold. Think of Paul Pogba, but just more defensive imposiveness. This guy's amazing. I think he's just so good. Very imposing in the tackle. But one thing I love about him, his ball carrying is absolutely superb. If you think of Tanguy Ndombele, the opposite. This guy actually sweats because he likes running. He likes the energy. He brings so much tenacity in the midfield. I don't think he's a CDM type. I think he's more of that Thiago type, a box-to-box, but not really, where he likes defending. He does it. I don't think he can play the CDM role like Thiago, but I think he could actually do it to the point where maybe in the future he could mold himself into that. But very young, I think he's 21 or 22, I'm not exactly sure. He can add that to our game. The driving, the grit from the midfield that we don't really have. Goretzka doesn't really like dribbling the ball that much. But over the last few weeks, y'all saw him. He's saucing up these hoes. He's doing it. Goretzka's saucing up players. But I don't think necessarily he is the ball carrier. Neither is Kimmich. Kimmich doesn't really take the ball, dribble past three players like Thiago, where Thiago is under pressure and he just does one turn and he's past three players. This guy can do that. I've seen him. His technical ability is on a similar level to Paul Pogba. Maybe you can look at his passing and say, oh, he needs improving. But when you have that much ability, this guy's very gifted. I didn't know who he was that long ago. I didn't know he was building himself at Lille. But he is playing with the one guy we don't want to talk about, Renato Sanches. But that's not the point. He's a very good player. He could probably be the closest replacement, in my opinion, to Thiago because of his tenaciousness in the midfield. That's probably the only reason I'm saying that. Because Camavinga, he's amazing, but then you could say, well, he doesn't really fit how we play. Well, this guy can do the defending, but most importantly, he has that drive that Thiago has, where his intelligence kicks in. He can turn in the midfield and bring the ball forward and keep the game flowing. A lot of these young players won't even succeed in their career, but it's always interesting watching them play. I think this guy's superb. He's been doing it for a few seasons now, but I hadn't really seen him on my radar. Next player we're talking about, I think a lot of this is going to surprise you. You're going to be like, wah, wah. Well, no, it shouldn't surprise you. Sandro Tonali, I think this guy's a brilliant player. he's probably going to be one of the midfielders of this little decade right here. I think he's touted to be the next Andrea Pirlo. Well, I don't think that's the case. I think that he has a different style to him. He has a little bit of grit and aggression. Not that Pirlo didn't. Pirlo just didn't give a crap about being aggressive. Pirlo cared more about the intellectual side of the game rather than the physical side of it. But this guy cares about everything. You can see it. He's lively in the tackle. He enjoys the just battles. He's already wearing the captain's armband for Brescia, and he could be fantastic for us. Let me know what you actually think, because a lot of you are like, well, he's going to Inter. Well, that's never sad. That's never true. Also, isn't he at Brescia who are getting relegated or something? I need to check that. They're getting relegated, aren't they? So, for me, if you go to this guy and you say, hey, come to Bayern. Look, Brescia's 19th in the Serie A. They're not going to get promoted. And this guy's been absolutely quintessential for them in every single game. He has an unmatched ability. I think if Bayern went in and bought him, he'd be absolutely superb for us. Why is he on the bench? Why was he on the bench there against Atalanta, who are scoring 6 goals against? God, this team is crazy tough to play, isn't it? Seriously, why not? Brescia are a good team. Not a good team. They're a terrible team. But he's a great player in a bad team. You can see it. The aggression is there. Picking up yellow cards like Thiago. I think he could be a good fit for Bayern. That deep-lying ability he has to just sit deep, move the ball around. Creativity is there. The tackling is there. The tenacious ability is there. Similar to Soumare. The only difference is I don't think Tonali is that fantastic at the dribbling side or the technique side of the game. He's a great passer, but I'm talking about just taking the ball, pressure's coming, bang, turn. I think he could probably be in a system like Antonio Conte's system where it relies on him and defending deep. I don't know about him playing, pressing, and yeah. See what I mean? There's certain players you can't really play a certain style of ball with. Pirlo's a great player, but he can't play Jurgen Klopp ball where you're pressing all the time. Nah, that's not working. Of course, Juventus have pressed in their time, but the reason why Andrea Pirlo did so well in Italy is because his teams would just take the ball from deep, whack it forward, or he would just pick out a man, counterattack. That one defense splitting pass from deep, it's slower. The Italian league is so boring to me because it's so much slower. The Bundesliga is the polar opposite. It's so fast. There's so much pace. People really complain about teams playing a high line because they want to press. Well, that makes the league so much more fun. Bang, pressing. I like that. Pressing more remote buttons than my mother when she sits like this. Seriously, great player. He could fit us. Another player we could get, 5th option. Nah, come on, guys. I know, but look, you know what? Hansi Flick wanted him to stay. Renato said it himself that he didn't like Kovac. That's why he was going. Kovac was very terrible in his management. But Bayern, honestly, we have done a real terrible thing to Ronaldo. First of all, you're coming into a new club. You are a youngster, one of the best in Europe. People highly put you here. You're supposed to be the next, that Ajax guy, or not, that Dutch guy that used to wear these goggles. He's supposed to be kind of like him. Or, what's his name? Seedorf. He's supposed to be the next Clarence Seedorf. Very great player. Did you see that goal versus his former team Benfica? That's what you get out of Renato. That individual brilliance he has in the midfield. That drive. He has it. The tenacious ability. I think if he was put in a team like Bayern in 2011 to 2013 with Jupp Heynckes, this guy could have been a new thing. He could have been amazing. But he was placed in a team under Carlo Ancelotti, who wasn't as interested in pushing him through to his best. No, he wasn't. Carlo didn't care. Carlo was like, who's this guy? Who is this guy? Smoke cigarette. No, he didn't care. And then he was sent out on loan to Swansea. Terrible, first of all. Why are you sending a player you want to be great in the Bundesliga to Swansea in the Premier League? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any inch of sense. And then he comes back and injuries. I feel like Renato still enjoys the club. I think he still likes Bayern. Honestly, you can tell he doesn't really have any hate towards Bayern. He hates Nico Kovac though. But Hansi Flick, he says he likes. What if Bayern go back calling? Maybe there's a buyback clause in there. Maybe Renato can say, you know what? This time I'm going to Bayern because Thiago's gone. He can come in. I always thought Renato was closer to Thiago in terms of technical ability. These ballers, man. You see how he runs the midfield with his tenacious energy? The tackling. He's not really that great at tackling in terms of the defensive IQ. He's more of an aggressive player when it comes to defending. But when he has the ball, this guy is saucing players. I'd like to see him back just because of sentimentalism, to be honest. But final one, Luka Modric. Well, this can just continue the Bayern philosophy of getting old bastard Real Madrid rejects to fill our squad because we don't have anyone else. Who's next? Gareth Bale to be our fourth choice winger. Yep, let's get Luka Modric too. Odriozola, James. Welcome to the club. The Real Madrid rejects FC Bayern Munich edition. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Mia San Mia and peace.